Everything, we've got access to so much advanced knowledge. If you want to learn how to do anything, you just go on YouTube, you search it, you'll find it. So we've got access to so much knowledge, more than what we had prior. So growing up in the 80s, 90s, it was like if we wanted knowledge, we would go to an encyclopedia, right? If you had an encyclopedia, volumes of books in your house, you were considered intelligent, right? It was like it was considered prestigious. But now everyone has access to this knowledge, So, are we truly more knowledgeable? Are we truly more wiser? Is the quality of our life better because we have access to all this knowledge? Or is it the opposite? Has it gone down? So just so I know, who likes to read here? Is anyone apart from, yes, non-Krishna conscious books?
Yeah, I did.
What did you read?
Expectation Effect by David Robson.
Okay, anyone else? Yes.
Knots by Tamara Klink.
Say that again?
Knots by Tamara Klink.
Okay. Anyone else? Yes.
Left Hand of Darkness, Ursula Le Guin.
These, okay. I've never heard of these books. These are very interesting. So, yes. So anyway, so we depend on knowledge. We can't live without knowledge. And everything we do, we are always acquiring knowledge. Nityanand Prabhu, he's the camera. Okay. So we're going to move. So now we're going to start the presentation. So what I want to do is really is to assess, analyze whether the knowledge we have is true knowledge, and is it making us truly knowledgeable. Okay. So before we start, who would like to define knowledge? Who has a simple definition? Yes. Could you say that again? Knowing. Okay. Yes.
Where the perception that is formed is closer to the reality.
Perception that is formed is closer to the reality. So you're saying there's like a distance. It's not the perception we have is not fully the reality. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, because perception could be manifold. It could be influenced by non-real things, but what gets us closer to the reality.
Okay. Anyone else?
I like that. It sounds information that tries to describe reality.
Information. Yeah. Okay. Anyone else? An accumulation of information. Okay. Good. So we have knowledge. So knowledge can be data, it can be technical skills, it can be academic degrees. So if we think about it, right, like when I was in school, because from the UK, so I did something called GCSEs. I'm not sure what the equivalent here is. So I remember my friend, he got all A stars in his exams, across a broad range of subjects, and everyone said he's really intelligent, he's really smart. But then when I would see him in real life, how he would interact with people, how he would deal with situations, especially stressful situations, he would fall apart. So is he really intelligent? He got good grades. He has a lot of knowledge. He understands, he can solve any equation. He knows all the scientific theories. I mean, he went on to do a PhD actually. But is he really intelligent? Can we really say he's knowledgeable despite the accumulation of knowledge? Does it mean what do you think? You said no? Why do you say no?
Because I think that there's the knowledge that you have from the things that you learn
Mm-hmm.
are from reality, and at the same time you have the knowledge of yourself.
Knowledge of yourself. Okay, that's good. That's very good. Very deep. Anyone else? No? So if I knew my times table up to 100, does that make me more intelligent, more knowledgeable than the average person? Does it make me more wiser? Not really. We have so exactly, if you think about it, if you analyze what constitutes knowledge, it's someone who's very good at memorization, right? So you memorize, if you're doing maths, for example, you memorize all the mathematical formulas, you memorize the strategies, and then you go on the exam, you do very well, you get the top marks, and then we say this guy is really smart. But what have you actually done? You just memorized. I mean, a parrot is very good at memorizing, can memorize phrases. So can we really say that's intelligent? Does that person really understand? So we can't base knowledge on accumulation, okay? Because really, if you think of it, knowledge should make our life better. It should lead to something. It shouldn't be just mere memorization. Otherwise, anyone can memorize something. Like in England, I know this guy who runs a tuition business, and it takes him like 6 weeks to learn a language. And he has some strategy, and he knows about 12 languages. You know, he went to Cambridge. And but when I speak to him about, you know, things that are going on in the world, you know, in terms of politics, especially in the UK and everything, he doesn't have a clue. He just knows these basic skills of memorizing. From an external point of view, you'd say he's intelligent, but is he really intelligent? So why do we seek knowledge, right? So we've defined knowledge, we've given our opinion, but why do we seek it? What some of the things that why are we pursuing knowledge? Sorry? To give meaning. Can you elaborate on that?
To give meaning to the world, so the things that we see, we understand.
Okay. Anyone else? We have quite a shy crowd today.
We want to shed light on things that are mysterious.
Shed light on things that are mysterious. What else? Yes.
I think it'll improve our lives.
Improve our lives. If you think about it, I don't know if any of you have children or you're around young kids, they're very curious. They're always asking questions. They always ask, why is this? Why is that? So I remember when I was teaching, because I'm a teacher by profession, so when I was in the UK, and I was teaching, I guess it's the equivalent, you call it grade 8, we call it year 7, and I teach them this theory, and the students would say, and they'd learn the theory, then they say, why does that work? They know how to do it, but they would always ask why. And it would get a bit annoying afterward because it wasn't really relevant. But it's such an important thing. We always want to know, why is this? Like I remember watching this film as a kid. And this guy, he becomes like he becomes like a villain in the film. And he doesn't really explain why he does that. And like with me, it's like, for me, it's like, I really want to understand, why did he go from good to bad? It was, the enigma was killing me. So by nature, we are curious people. Asking questions, why is this, why is that? Can you guys think of anything, like when you were in your lives where you wanted to know something and you haven't got it and it's really frustrated you? Yes?
I want to know Bengali. That's very frustrating.
Ooh.
It's very hard to learn.
Yeah. Well, they say actually the most difficult languages to learn are Chinese, Japanese and Hungarian, because they have very advanced grammar. Someone told me that. So someone said what's your name? Julia. You said about meaning, right? So there's a famous author, he's a Holocaust survivor. He wrote a very famous book called Man's Search for Meaning. He says that meaning is the primary motivation in life. We are all looking for meaning. We are all looking for purpose. Why does this happen to me? Why am I undergoing such struggles? Why do I react in this way? We are all looking for meaning, and it gives us a sense of control. If we know the answer, it gives us a sense of security. So, if we generally believe, if I understand it, I can control it, right? I can manage it. That's a general understanding. So if you look at science, they are always trying to study things, try to understand the nature of matter. So by doing that, they think they can control it. They can predict the results and maybe create new medicine, new technological advancement. And and if you think about it, it's actually reducing fear because you don't know what's going to happen in the future. But if you know what's going to happen, then you can control it. It reduces fear, isn't it? So meaning, happiness, improve our lives. But we've figured out a lot of things. But do we still feel more anxious? Like they were setting up this the TV. I'm completely rubbish at technology, and I was feeling a little bit anxious. Like I don't really know about that, but like even the guys who were setting up, they were starting to feel a bit anxious. They were thinking, so it's like it took quite a long time, kind of effects. But we know things, but we still feel anxious. Why are we not confident with the knowledge we have? Why can't we be sober? Why can't we be cool, calm, and collective? Because it implies there's something in that knowledge that's not really doing the job. There's something missing there. Would anyone like to say something contrary to that? Say anything regarding that? We have a very shy crowd today. Usually it's quite talkative. I may start picking on people to speak. Okay, so if your head's down, I'm going to pick on you. Okay, yes?
I'm convinced wisdom, preaching, knowledge aren't enough to change people. I think training and
Training and conditioning.
No amount of knowledge is enough to help everyone achieve their desired outcomes.
Okay.
Which is why I seek knowledge to have perspective, so that not only can I achieve my desired outcomes, but I can help others do it.
You said wisdom. Do you distinguish between wisdom and knowledge?
Yes.
What's the difference?
I'd say wisdom is knowing which decisions to make with the knowledge to get what you want.
Okay, that's a good definition. Anyone would like to add to that? Yes.
Yeah, I feel like wisdom is you are put into a certain challenging situation, so you get a chance to actually apply the knowledge you acquire and put it into action. That way, it's not just in the brain, it goes into your heart. You
Okay,
understand?
so it goes much more deeper. Yes.
To me, wisdom would be the capacity to use knowledgeable things.
Okay.
The knowledgeable things are based upon experience of others.
Okay.
And then you, with the factual things that you observe,
Yep.
pick up those two, knowledgeable, previous,
Mhm.
established things with factual things, then you put those two together to arise to a new depth of understanding. Then it becomes true applied wisdom as opposed to knowledge.
Very good.
So,
Yes.
I think for me, wisdom is something that comes from your ancestors.
From your ancestors.
Yes, something
Okay.
that it's deeper and just comes with you.
Okay.
And
So it's passed down.
I think so, but it's like it's not necessarily like it's something that it's within you.
Okay.
And acknowledge is something that you conquer.
Okay.
Here.
Okay, very good. There's some really interesting answers here. So like living in America, they say America is the most, materialistic, successful country in history. We have access to knowledge, we have access to money, we have access to things, but we see, especially not just in America, but all over the world, we see rising cases of depression, people seeking mental help. So that means the knowledge that they're getting is not really doing the job. There's something lacking in that, in fact, we can think about it. Even if you get knowledge to make money, money in itself doesn't satisfy Krishna. Money in itself doesn't really satisfy you. I mean, there's many cases of that, So that means there's something lacking in the basic foundation. So we talked about knowledge. Let's talk about illusion. What is illusion? What does illusion mean to you? Okay. Yes.
Something you perceive illusion when out of ignorance.
Out of ignorance. Oh, that's very good. So, I remember watching when I was young this TV program about this magician. His name is David Copperfield, and he did this thing where he went through the wall of China. And I was young and I believed it. And then they showed how he actually did it. And because I used to actually believe these magicians actually had secret powers, they could actually do that. But then I realized it's all about trick of the mind. It's all about psychology. So it was complete illusion. It was trickery of the senses. So that was my understanding of illusion. But is that so? So what's your name?
Thomas.
Thomas. Yes. So he gave it one definition. Can we think of another definition of illusion? Yes.
When you think something is a certain way, but it's not actually that way, factually that way.
So you think something is one way, but actually it's not.
Your senses deceive you.
Yes. Just like, I remember I was in India. I was in Bengal, and this is about a few years ago. And I was walking with my friend. We were going to the Ganges. We wanted to go and swim in the Ganges because it's really hot. And we saw this cobra go past us. So then we stopped and we went back because it's inauspicious to see a snake. So you shouldn't really go on your journey. So the next day, when I was walking with my friend, we saw this thing that we thought was a snake, but it wasn't. It was just a rope. Someone left it. So we were, because we saw a snake prior, we thought that was a snake, So anyway, so we didn't risk it. So the next day we saw it was actually a rope. So we can be deceived all the time. Like I remember once I was driving at night time, but not me, I was driving, my friend was driving. And it was like, we were driving to the south of England from London. And I remember feeling really tired, and we were driving through this countryside road, and I thought I saw a cow in the middle of the road. I thought we were going to hit it, but it was just a trick of the mind, illusion, At one point it felt like I was in India because you have cows everywhere. So illusion, you know, can we, so I guess we've all had experiences where we've come into illusion, right? It's very easy to trick somebody. It's very easy to trick your senses. You know, we've had many examples, and sometimes we laugh about it. So let's look at, so I'm going to give you two definitions of illusion. This is like kind of like an aggregate definition. Illusion is the false perception of reality, usually caused by sensory or mental error. I mean, we just gave some examples, right? Now, the second definition is based on the Vedic definition on spirituality. It's mistaking the temporary for eternal, the body for the self, and the world for reality. So this is it is a very different paradigm here. Illusion is based on how you perceive the world through your senses. And this is taking it even deeper. It's saying that actually what you're talking about surface level, there's something much more deeper. We're talking about, it's kind of going into the realm of existential questions. You know, what is reality? What is illusion? So would someone like to ask a question at this point? If they're not clear? Anything related? This is definitely...
What's interesting
Yes?
is the fact that depending on level of individual consciousness, you can attest something as illusion. But for somebody else in a lower realm, they say it's true. Look what's happened to me. And then that doesn't become illusion anymore. You see, consciousness play a big importance where to distinguish reality from illusion.
Very good.
Maybe I could add to that.
Yeah.
Here, for example, it says mistaking the world for reality, kind of like you're expressing it. Like someone, it might be an illusion, but it is factual that they perceive things in a certain way. So is that experience is a reality for them?
Yes.
For example, you might have saw the rope as a snake, and you might have turned back. It might not have factually been a snake, but it is true that you experienced it as a snake.
Yes.
So that, at least your perception was true.
That's a good example actually. So it's a good point. So the one aspect of this is dealing with the external senses, but the other aspect is dealing with, you know, like the cause of that, you could say, you know, is dealing with what is our ultimate reality? What is this world? Who are we? You know? Because if you don't know what, you may know, like I may know this is a harmonium, but if I don't know its purpose, then it's kind of pointless me knowing this is made from wood, it's got some plastic on it, it's got some metal on it. I've got to know its utility, I've got to know its function, its purpose. So if I think it's something to break nuts with, then I've kind of missed the point. Hare Krishna, welcome. So there's a very interesting verse in the Bhagavad Gita. I'll just kind of paraphrase it. It says that deluded by my material energy, Maya, because in Sanskrit, illusion is called Maya. So Prabhuji said that which is not. That is the basic definition of Maya. You perceive something, you think it's true, but it's not actually true. So Krishna says that you're deluded by Maya. People do not know me, the eternal source. So because of this energy of illusion, you can't really see reality. You can't perceive it. So let's look at the illusion of modern knowledge. Okay, we're just going to go through it. Progress hides deeper questions. Are we any closer to knowing who we are? So like I gave the example of my friend who knows so many languages. You know, there's people who get, you know, high grades. People have so much money, you know, and, you know, they've acquired knowledge, but they don't actually know who they are. You know, we all have this problem where we have this, you know, sometimes we call it midlife crisis, or, you know, we have a mental breakdown. But, you know, if you think about it, it's related to our body, it's related to our job, it's related to our family, it's related to, you know, our country. But it's not really related to who we are, because there's this kind of like a crisis going on within us, you know, and we're not able to figure it out. But actually, the Vedic scripture talks about, it's actually talking about the real person within. Until you fix that, you're not really going to get anywhere. You know, there's this great historian, I can't pronounce his name, but he wrote this book. He wrote 2 books, I'm trying to think of the name now. But he basically said that we've conquered the world outside, okay, but not the world within, okay? He says, we've mastered outer space, but not inner peace. So we've done all these technological advancements, but still there's, you know, we have no peace. Because we don't know who we are. Facts without wisdom. Do facts equal truth? I had this phrase in my mind, I've forgotten now. But basically, if you think about it, we can pretty much measure anything, but meaning is separate from measurement. Can we really have meaning for measuring something? Like you can measure how loud something is, how tall something is, how much something weighs, but do you really have meaning? Does it, if you think about it, we have so much access to information on the internet, but has that really improved our mental health? If anything, it makes you more confused, right? Like, someone was saying that, the more information you have, it confuses people. So when I was training as a maths teacher, one of my mentors said, you should teach the students one concept per lesson. Because if you teach too much, it's information overload, right? So I always stuck to that philosophy, just one concept in an hour. Because if I try to teach them 20 concepts, how many of them are going to remember it? So more data does not mean more understanding. It actually means less understanding. We have more tools, but we have fewer truths. We know how things work, but we don't really know why they exist. We know how water is recycled. It evaporates, it goes into the sky, the sun purifies it, it rains. We know how it works. Well, but why is that happening? So there's so many things we know about, but we don't really understand the deeper meaning behind it. Why is it happening? Why does it exist? Objectivity ignores inner reality. So I've discussed that. More knowledge, less insight. And are we asking the right question? Despite everything, if you think we are, these questions are not being answered by modern science. Who am I? Why do I suffer? What is my purpose? You can, like Srila Prabhupada, he said that, there's not a department in any university in the world, especially in America, which teaches who we are. Like he went to MIT and said, do you have a department that teaches this knowledge about who we are, what our purpose is? And they said, no, we don't have that. And if you look at, like, during the Renaissance, you had all these great philosophers coming up in Europe, like René Descartes, I'm trying to think of the other guys. They all try to tackle this question, who am I? René Descartes said, I think, therefore I am, But still, he was kind of far from the truth. They didn't really know, but they attempted it, okay? So sometimes people say consciousness is like is neurons in the brain. There's some sort of movement in the brains, and it's that. So there's all these answers, but they're not really. No one has really knows who we are. What is consciousness? Who are we? What is our purpose? Yes.
I overheard that the sages and gurus who are enlightened masters.
Yes.
If you come to them and ask, Master, tell me what is the most important question, then all questions. Because devotees coming to a guru always questions, zillions of questions. But one question, the most important of all,
yes.
All masters, enlightened masters, should always answer, the most important is, who am I?
Yes.
One question, most of all. And when you are able to reach with them, reach your supreme state,
yes,
part of the supreme,
yes,
that's in you,
yes,
then you can truly answer to the core of that question. Now I know who I am.
That's a very good answer. Very good. That's very deep. And that's the most important thing. And actually, that is the basis of knowledge. That's the first thing you should really start off with. Real knowledge begins with the self. Okay? In psychology, identity is often treated as a construct. It's made up of memory, behavior, social ideas, genetics, or personality types. But these things are all changing. Like, remember when you was a child, right? You had a certain personality, you had certain likes. Hare Krishna, welcome. But we don't have those same tastes now. Our body doesn't look the same. They say that the cells in the body change every 7 years. I was just looking at pictures of myself when I was a kid. It was amazing, how much transformation has happened. And like sometimes there's this thing, it's kind of like an AI thing where they show this famous person from childhood growing up, going through the years, going to elderly age. And it's amazing how that transformation is happening. The body's changing, but something within is constant. The personality is the same. The identity is the same. So what is that I that is changing? Hare Krishna. So Bhagavad Gita, if you read the Bhagavad Gita, so Bhagavad Gita is this ancient text where Arjuna, he speaks to Krishna, and he's confused. It's before a battle. He's having a moral dilemma, and Krishna is his cousin, and also a very wise person. And he says to Krishna, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm kind of confused. I just want to give up. Please tell me what to do. I surrendered unto you. I accept you as a guru. So the first thing Krishna says to him is, you are not the body. You are the eternal soul. Now, the term soul can be expressed differently in different languages. In Arabic, they use the word ruh. In Sanskrit, we use the word jiva, jivatma. But it's talking about that non-material substance within you that is eternal. That is the real person. Until you know that, everything you know that comes after it will be zero. So it's like it's just like, you multiplying, let's say you multiply 1 billion by 0. What's the answer? Zero. So you can go up to 1 trillion. You can do 1 trillion times 0. What's the answer? 0. So until you get your basic right, your foundation right, you will not be able, everything that happens afterwards, you can get money, you can get knowledge, you can get anything. You will always be dissatisfied. Okay, so true knowledge begins when we inquire into the nature of the self. Okay? Modern education focuses on the world around us, not the reality within us. We know that you go to any university, they don't really study this. Now, there was this interesting thing I noticed, I was actually there in London, at the London School of Pharmacy. So one spiritual practitioner, he came and he hypnotized 2 people on the stage, and he took them back to their past lives. And it was very vivid, it was very detailed, and they even talked about how they died, where they lived, what their names were. And at first I thought they were joking. So I knew both those characters who were hypnotized, and I spoke to them, and they were like, look, because now they remember what happened, and it was like they could actually see themselves being there, going through those emotions, and not just that, but there's also evidence to show about reincarnation, about people having past lives, going through different bodies, living in different countries, even going through different species. So the soul is the real substance, it's the real identity. Okay? So if we have real knowledge, proper knowledge, it should really help us transcend things. What are the main problems that we face today? If you think about it, right? Birth, death, disease, what else? Old age. Anything else? These are the 4 main. Krishna talks about it. It's Janma. This is when you get old, you forget the verses. But anyway, Krishna talks about these 4 things. So these are the main things. If you think these are the basic things, and we're all going through it. Nobody wants to die here. Nobody wants to grow old. No one wants to get sick. Like I remember when COVID happened, and luckily I didn't get COVID, but I knew people who got sick, and these were healthy people, and they were so miserable, so depressed. So and it was like such a horrible, paralyzing thing to happen when you get sick. So I'm from UK, we don't really get extreme weather. Here it's like the weather is like the North Pole for me when it's winter, So like when I get sick, it's like I don't want to go out. I just want the heating on full blast. I want to wear my layers, And then when you get sick, it's horrible. Like I never experienced that in England. Europe you get extreme cold, but it's horrible when you get sick. Nobody wants to get sick. Nobody wants to have disease. Nobody wants to grow old. Like near where I live, there's a soccer pitch, and I see all these kids playing and adults playing. And growing up, I used to play football we call it football, you guys call it soccer, but we used to play 2 hours a day after school. And I remember I had so much stamina, so much flexibility. If I tried to play now, I'd probably pull about 20, 30 muscles in my body, And I'd probably have to go to hospital. But I wish I was more fluid. And sometimes I see them play, I think these guys don't know how to play football, not the way I grew up. But anyway, the point is we wish we were the same, how we were. So our body is, the thing is, this body gives us so much problems. You may decorate, you may put on nice clothes, you may even have plastic surgery, but the body's still going to give you problems, right? This body cannot give you pleasure. It's not designed to give you pleasure. It's designed to go through these 4 changes: birth, death, disease, old age. Anyone thinks the body does give them pleasure? Would anyone like to argue against that? There's always one. No? Okay, no problem. Not going to judge you. Okay.
They're not there to take that against you.
What's that?
They're not there to take that against you.
So I've talked about, we kind of had an overview of modern knowledge. I'm not going to call it mundane because I don't want to knock it, because we depend on it, Like I'm depending on this technology to use, to present this presentation. I take medicine, I use transport to get from A to B, or when I go to the UK to see my family. So, I'm not knocking it. There is utility, there is purpose to knowledge, I'm grateful for it. But that knowledge in itself is not the be all and end all. There's something much more higher than that, So in the Vedic culture, like I explained about Krishna. So Krishna, he is considered to be the supreme personality of Godhead. Now what does that mean? That means he's the supreme person, the supreme authority. Arjuna accepts him as such. He's a historical person who appeared in India 5,000 years ago in a place called North India, and he spoke the Bhagavad Gita. The Bhagavad Gita is the most ancient book of knowledge. It's not a religious book, it's a manual for life. And it talks you how to live in this world. It answers all the existential questions you need to you think about. And it tells you how to go through this world, do your duty and achieve perfection. And it's written in a very accessible way. Now Arjuna was, he was a man of the world, he was a warrior, he was a prince, he was having a moral dilemma, and he surrendered to his cousin Krishna. So let's look more about him. So Krishna is described in the Bhagavad Gita as Sarvagya. He's all-knowing, okay? He's all-knowing. He knows everything, past, present, future, okay? He's Sakshi, he's the witness in everyone's heart. So when we talk about, we have the saying that God's in our heart. So in the Sanskrit term is Paramatma, Param Atma. He is the super soul within the heart. He's witnessing everything, all your thoughts, he's witnessing your deeds, he knows what you did in the past, what you're going to do in the future, he knows everything. When he gives knowledge, it's not theoretical, but it's transformational. And this is the beauty of spiritual knowledge, that material knowledge is just all really about accumulation. But spiritual knowledge is about transformation. It's changing your character and taking you to higher realms of consciousness. Material knowledge on its own, modern knowledge on its own cannot do that. So Bhagavad Gita I have explained. Who's read the Bhagavad Gita here? Most people heard it? Who's never read the Bhagavad Gita? Put your hand up. Okay. So at the end, if you are more interested, you can get a copy at the back. So Bhagavad Gita is a very ancient book. It was read by many famous personalities. Actually, the first time it was translated into English was in the 17th century by, it was an English guy called Charles Wilkins, if I'm correct. He was a Sanskritist. And over the years, many people have turned to this book for knowledge. So there was a film that came out last year called Oppenheimer, about the guy who made the first nuclear bomb. And he was actually a student of the Bhagavad Gita. He learned Sanskrit and he basically used to read it. And when he was so inspired by it that he kind of he lived by its principles. And when the first atom bomb went off, he quoted a verse from the Gita. And not just him, but there's many other, there's Martin Luther King, there's Mahatma Gandhi. There's many famous people who have read the Gita. It's not knowledge that's just exclusive to India, but it was knowledge known all over the world by the intellectual, the academics. So now I'm going to give you Krishna gives now I've introduced Krishna. So in the Vedas, he's considered the supreme person, the supreme authority. Now Krishna is going to talk about what is real knowledge, okay? We've talked about knowledge as accumulation of facts, data, memorizing, okay? But Krishna says something very different. He says, he talks, I'm just going to put them up. I'm not going to say all of them. He says that, he talks about qualities. He says real knowledge is qualities. He gives 19. And the first of these qualities of knowledge is humility. Why do you think humility is the first item in knowledge? Can we really learn without humility?
No.
Why can't we?
Because we feel like, we already know everything.
Okay, so we're going. Good. So imagine you're taking driving lessons, right? So when I was taking driving lessons, I had this really rough driving instructor who would criticize me at every go. Now I could have let my ego get the better of me and say, "Who the hell are you?" I could have got an argument with him. But he's teaching me. I'm paying him for that, right? So it's in my best interest to listen to him, take what he says on board, swallow my pride, and then I'm going to pass my driving test, which actually happened on my second go. First time I felt it wasn't my fault, someone else's fault. Anyway, that's a long story. But the point is, without humility, you cannot learn anything. You go to school, you have to accept your teacher, what they're saying, their chastisement is for your betterment. Okay? So spiritual knowledge is like that. So Arjuna, he sets the example. What does he do? He surrenders to his cousin and accepts him as guru. He says, please teach me, please help me. Okay, so humility is the first thing. So all these things are qualities. Krishna says that qualities is basically what is real knowledge, not facts. Anyone can learn facts. Even a parrot, you can teach a parrot to say phrases. Doesn't mean he understands it. So the whole point of, I think it was Aristotle, he said the purpose of education is, I'm just kind of paraphrasing, speculating, is about transformation. It's about developing inner qualities. You know, like one of the first things when I had my interview for when I wanted to be a teacher, so the lady, the professor, whatever her name is, she said, why do you want to be a teacher? And it was and I said, you know what? I want to be a teacher because I want to help create good citizens, productive citizens. I feel that education is not about numbers and facts. I want to share knowledge so that it makes them a better person. And my teacher, my professor, who was like 60 years old, been teaching like 35 years, she was so impressed by the answer. She said, that is the purpose of education, to improve your character. Now, this is coming from someone who works in university, who was a maths teacher, and her thing is she works on the platform of modern knowledge. But even she acknowledged that. Because imagine, right, you go to school, you get good grades, you go to university, you get a good job, you know, you buy the big house, you get the fancy car, but you're not a good person. You don't treat your family well. You know, you're not charitable. You think you're better than other people. What is the value of all that? It means nothing. You know, the whole purpose of knowledge is to develop qualities. So Krishna says real knowledge, someone who has real knowledge is someone who has these qualities. It means you are a civilized, cultured, sophisticated person. I was you know, like in England, like I remember I was in this place called Mayfair. So Mayfair is like where all the rich people live in London. And so I knocked on the wrong house by accident because I was trying to go somewhere. And this guy answered the door, and he was a butler. And I don't know if you've seen the films of butlers from England, you know, back in the days. This guy was basically like that. He was intelligent, he was cultured, well-dressed, well-groomed, you name it. And the way he spoke to me, the way he dealt with me, I was so impressed. I said, he's more cultured than some of the people I've seen in education institutions. So, and you know, I didn't think, oh, he's a butler, he's got a low job. I was thinking about his character. I was thinking about his personality. It really left an impression on me. And I was like, this is what it means. This is what, because we're not attracted to knowledge, we're attracted to people. Like when you go to buy something, right? It's not the product you buy, it's the person you buy. It's the person impresses you with their qualities. Has anyone ever had that experience? Like when we go to buy something and that person inspires us so much, you know? We think he's such a nice guy, I really want to, I'm going to do it. He's convinced me. Now imagine someone has so much knowledge and is trying to convince you, but it's just making snarky comments, you know, and saying horrible, making you feel stupid. You're not going to buy it. You may need the product, you're not going to buy it. It's the person. So qualities is the most important thing. If you don't have this, you're not knowledgeable. Would anyone like to ask a question at this point? Okay, so I did say I would pick on some people who have been here not asking questions. So I'll do eeny, miny, miny. You with the shawl. What's your name? Behind you? You don't have a shawl. She has a shawl. Yes. What's your name? Madeline. Is this your first time here? So what do you think about what I just said? Do you have any questions regarding that? Do you think qualities is important or accumulation of facts?
Do I think quality is important or accumulation of effects?
Which one do you think is more important?
Accumulation of effects? I mean,
Facts.
oh, effects.
Yeah.
Quality.
What's more important, qualities of a person or accumulation of facts, information and data?
Are they the same person?
Doesn't matter. Well, I'm asking what's more important to you? What impresses you? What do you say, what would impress you more?
It's a really complicated question. I think either one of them can be more important than the other at different times. Right?
Okay.
I mean, I think it's important to have this, like, you know, to be a quality person, and I think, of course, quality people are very attractive, and those are the kind of people that you want to be around, they're the people that you want to be guided by, they're the people that you want to be in community with. But there's also this constant seeking of facts, and we're constantly looking for a way to understand the reality that we're in, and we're constantly challenged as well. So I could see both of them to be very valuable.
So you're saying both should be there together, is that what you're saying?
What should be?
There together?
At different times, yes.
they shouldn't be there simultaneously. Is that what you're saying?
Some, for me,
Yes.
one is more important at times, and then another more important.
Okay, fine. Anyone that has a different opinion? Yes.
I think the qualities are more important because there are two pillars of success.
Yes.
There's the structural framework,
Yes.
and then there's the operating system, which
Hmm.
is the mindset, the operating mindset, beliefs, and programming.
Okay.
So you can have two lawyers who are equally intelligent,
Mm.
and they both pass the bar.
Mm.
You have one who's succeeding, and you have one who's struggling because the one who's struggling is doing all the work themselves because of their identity and their qualities, and taking all the money for themselves. They can't possibly succeed on their own.
Mm.
And then you have the other one who works with a team or a firm and who's succeeding.
Very good. Anyone else would like to share? I saw some hands up. Yes?
I like what you said, that we're buying a person, not
Yes.
the product. Because product we need, but if a person presented in the wrong way, sometimes we're inspired by the person.
Mm.
That's why people have charisma. That's why people go more with that, usually.
Anyone else? Yes.
Earlier you asked the definition of knowledge, and I liked one that I heard from Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur.
Yes.
So he says that knowledge is that thing by which something is known.
Mm.
Like heat is that thing that by a cake is made.
Yes.
So knowledge is the instrumental thing that something is known.
Yes.
And so these are like the instruments or the process of knowledge. These things help you develop awareness of.
Mm. So thank you for that. So it's not that you just have qualities. True knowledge should help you develop these qualities. So basically we need both of them simultaneously. It's not like complementing things. Like one thing has something else, and they work together. It's not like that. You should have these things. So if you're not developing these qualities, you're not really knowledgeable. Because to understand real knowledge, this should be not only the foundation, but this should be something that's you're cultivating throughout. It's developing. Okay. So knowledge, information is passive, right? But qualities are active. Qualities like self-control, devotion require practice and purification. Srila Prabhupada said that Krishna consciousness, the process of Krishna consciousness, is a scientific process. So sometimes we think of spirituality as a sentimental thing, or we are just chanting, dancing, and feasting. But Srila Prabhupada said, no, it's actually scientific. There's a hypothesis, there's a method, and there's an evaluation. And these results are predictable. You can observe them within yourself. Okay, so we need to. So Krishna says these are the real qualities. These are the real evidence of someone who has knowledge. Now, in the next thing, he talks about components of knowledge. Okay, he says that he talks about three aspects. He says the kshetra. He says the field. What is the field? The field is the body and the world of matter. It's the arena of action. Kshetragya. That is the knower of the field, the individual, the individual soul. That's us. So Kshetra's matter is the material world, and there is Paramatma, there's Krishna, Ishvara. He's the supreme person. Remember when I gave the example, he's all-knowing? That is Krishna. So Krishna says you have to know these three things. If you know these three things, then everything you know afterwards, you're gonna, when I gave the example of, 1,000,000 times 0 is always 0. But now you're starting with 1. 1 times a million is a million. 10 times a million, and so on. It goes on. So now you've got your basis right. So we need to, without this knowledge, without this distinction between between this body, the soul, and the super soul, all of the knowledge remains incomplete. So this is like a triad of knowledge for real knowledge. So let's say you understood, especially who here for the first time. If you're hearing this for the first time, or when you first heard that you are not the body but the soul, what kind of change? What kind of change in your consciousness? What kind of transformation did that do for you? How did it change your life? How did it affect you? When you know you're not the body but the soul. When you hear this knowledge, did it make any difference for you? Yep, go on.
Very calming.
It's very common.
Or relieving.
Say that again.
Calming or relieving.
Relieving or calming and relieving. Yes. What else? Yes.
Getting more deeper into my likes and dislikes, which I used to perceive as
Yes.
to how I got it, rather than actually seeing that like as me,
Okay.
dislike as my thing. It's more of how did I get that?
Okay,
Like
very
you
good.
were saying.
Anyone else? Okay. Yes.
It sort of explained a lot of things for me, and my understanding of how it was sort of like an aha moment, like, oh wow, now my life makes sense. Now I understand my past choices.
So it's like, imagine you're trying to get from where you are to another place, right? And you need to first know where you are. Your GPS or your phone needs to identify where you are. If you don't know where you are, how are you going to get from that location to the other location, to the destination where you want to go? It starts with the basic principle. Where are you? So real knowledge starts with who are you. When you know who you are, then that will change all your actions. It will change your thinking. It will change your consciousness. So, like an example is like, I remember watching this film, and it was this king. He went into incognito in his kingdom. He wanted to see how the people, what they thought about him. So he was wearing normal clothes, and he was speaking to all the merchants. And he said, what do you think of the king? Do you think he's a good guy? Do you think he's fair? Some people said good things. Some people said criticism, right? And one person was very harsh in his language. Said, oh, he's a tyrant. He overtaxes us. He does this. He does that. So that king got a bit upset, and he was about to attack him. So then it was his assistant with him and called him back. He said, why are you getting affected? You're the king. Why does it matter what he thinks? You know who you are. You've got more than him. You're more powerful than him. You can do anything. And then he came to his senses. He said, you're right. Why should I be affected by this guy? I don't need to be affected. I know who I am. So when you know who you are, it doesn't matter what people say about you. So if someone criticizes you, they're really criticizing the body. If someone says you're ugly, you're not intelligent, who are they talking about? They're not talking about your soul. They're talking about the body. So it shouldn't really affect you. Then you can move in this life in a certain way without being affected by what's going in the world, because now you know what your purpose is. Okay, so modern knowledge. If you start with the basic principle of not knowing who you are, what is the field, who is God, who's the super soul, you're going to accumulate information. You're going to accumulate so much knowledge, so much money, but eventually it's going to stress you out. You're going to become frustrated. They say like when people suddenly come into money, the first thing they do is they go shopping, they buy expensive clothes, jewelry, houses, Lamborghinis, and when that novelty wears off, next thing they try to do like intoxicants, right? And then they keep taking intoxicants to get that next fix. Then after a while they get frustrated, then they get depressed, right? And then it's like it's like it was kind of pointless. That money didn't change them, because if they're placing their happiness, their purpose, their identity in what the modern knowledge, the modern things, they're going to be dissatisfied. Like you can have, like if someone gave you, I don't know, $1,000, maybe more, because America is more expensive than other countries. Let's say someone gave you like $10,000, said you can go down Fifth Avenue, buy what you want. All right, most of you will go, right? But then once you've done that, once you've got them items, once that novelty wears off, you're going to think, is this it? What was this? There's nothing really in this, So there's a different paradigm here. So spiritual knowledge is about liberation. It's about knowing who you are, purifying your consciousness, developing good qualities, and basically using that to go forward in life. So your work, your family, you know how to interact with them. You don't interact with them in ways that damage your relationship, damage your reputation. You work in such a way that you elevate them and you elevate yourself. So like when you talk about spiritual knowledge, sometimes people think it's got no connection to material knowledge, but it does. Real knowledge, real spiritual knowledge doesn't just take you out of illusion, but it also helps your material knowledge. So I'll just put this up. So like a good one is consciousness. If someone criticizes you, why are you going to react? Just be detached. You're not the body, right? It teaches you simplicity, discipline. Like waking up early is such a hard thing for a lot of people, coming home, when you wake up in the morning, who does their bed straight away? Be honest. How many people do that? Only some. Most people don't do it. They usually go to the shower, get changed, have breakfast. Maybe if they're not going to work, midday they'll do the bed. It's kind of normal, right? But a sign of a disciplined person is someone who does the bed straight away. How often do we eat at the right time? How many of us eat late at night time? I mean, sometimes we can't help it, But leading a disciplined life is so difficult. But if you can be disciplined, you can achieve anything. Right? You know, if you have spiritual insight, it leads to better choices. Okay, you know how to use wealth. You know your health is good. You know everything about you will become better. And while you're doing that, you're accumulating spiritual knowledge. You're becoming free from illusion because you know the proper utility and purpose behind everything. So just recap: knowing the self as a spiritual being, very important as the basic of spiritual knowledge. Recognizing Krishna as the supreme truth, as the source of knowledge. Developing qualities as a result of that, and seeking liberation from illusion and suffering. Right. Just one more thing. Right. So how do we cultivate knowledge? You ask deeper questions. Hear from the right source. Read Bhagavad Gita. Listen to spiritual teachers. Associate with seekers. Try a daily spiritual practice. Chant Hare Krishna. You chant Hare Krishna, you will have a spiritual experience. Because that mantra is a spiritual sound vibration. It's coming in contact with the soul. Reading one verse of the Gita. I guarantee if you read one verse of the Gita every day with full concentration and focus, you're gonna have a new perspective. It's gonna have a disproportionate effect on your life. Practice mindfulness. Show gratitude for what you have, and you will eventually see you coming from the illusion coming into real knowledge. Okay, so I'm going to stop here. Would anyone like to ask a question? Ask a comment? Make a comment?
I like your perspectives, the way you share things.
Oh,
Different
thanks.
perspective.
Maybe it's my accent. I don't know. Some people say it's my accent. Anyway, thank you. Who?
Probably the accent.
Yeah.
No, I'm joking.
Yeah. Anyone else? Would anyone? Yes.
Knowing the self, that would take a whole lifetime.
So there's a difference between understanding you're not the body but the soul, and realizing you are the soul. So what are you talking about? The second aspect? So there's two things. There's two things. Which one are you talking about? That's what I'm saying. So knowing you're not the body but the soul. That's the basic, right? That doesn't take a lifetime. You can understand that through so many ways. But to actually understand you're the soul, right? Yeah, it could take a lifetime. But the thing is, if you know that's the highest knowledge, that's the ultimate knowledge, does it matter how long it takes? You know, let's say, for example, you have to go on this medical treatment, right? It's going to take a while for you to get healthy, to get better. You're going to have to go for all these austerities. But isn't it worth it to going through that treatment to get better? Does that make sense? So it doesn't matter how long it takes. Well, how long it takes depends on you, how sincere and thoughtful and how sincere you are to the process. But the thing is, you're on the right path. So interesting, Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, he says, if you start this path of Krishna consciousness, there is no loss or diminution on this path. You don't lose anything. So if you make 1% spiritual advancement, guess what? In your next life, you're going to carry on from there. So you don't lose anything. You will never lose that. Whereas if you accumulate, mundane knowledge, let's say you learn your times table up to 100, it's material, you're going to lose it. If you learn how to speak 12 languages, you're probably going to remember some of them, but you're going to lose it. It's material. But if you learn spiritual knowledge, and if you pursue a spiritual path, you will never lose that. It's to your eternal credit. So it's all the worthwhile. But if you want to realize that, Krishna says, as you're practicing this knowledge, you will gain self-realization. You will realize who you are. Okay? And the thing is, when you're doing this practice, it's not like there's no taste, there's no experience, there's no rasa. There is. You will feel ecstasy, you will feel bliss every time you're chanting, you're having Krishna Prasadam, you're associating with devotees, you're hearing, because the process is coming in contact with the soul, and that will keep you going, and then you will realize the soul. You will maybe in the beginning you will experience aspects of the soul, but when your time comes, when maybe the time of death, you will realize you're the soul. Does that answer your question? Yes.
I think on that note, can we try realizing the soul through practical?
Yeah, it's practical. So practical, chanting Hare Krishna. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Hare Krishna. Yes.
So would it be like a counterintuitive statement? So like if I'm questioning who am I, should I always like remind myself like alongside that I'm not the body nor the mind?
Why would it be counterintuitive? You said it. You said counterintuitive?
Yes.
If you're let's say they talk about affirmation. They talk about reminding yourself you're good at this or you're going to achieve this. Is that a bad thing?
No.
No. So if you're reminding yourself you're the body, you're not the body, you're the soul every day. isn't that going to have a knock-on effect on the way you go about your life? Right? So instead of acting materialistic, you will act spiritual. Instead of leading your life in a way that is going the wrong way, you lead your life in the right way. Instead of being affected by negative comments, you'll be detached. But you have to remind yourself. So repetition is good. So there's not a bad thing, but we have to keep reminding ourselves because we have a tendency to forget. So I can't remember what I was doing at this time yesterday, 24 hours ago. So, but if I remind myself, I write it down, I'm going to remember it, isn't it? Does that make sense? Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.